Hello and welcome into another episode of Nighttime. My name is Andrew Greig alongside my co-host Joe Geiger, and it's over. It is so over for the Knights as they end their historic run with a loss in the round of 64. We'll get into it in a second here, Joe, but let's start with March as a whole. How are you feeling about the madness?
It's the best tournament. It's the best time of year. I think Sunday night saved the tournament.
For sure.
Banger games back and forth all night. It was awesome.
I will say, throughout the start of the tournament, I thought it was like a little bit of a mid-March madness, but towards the end, it's really turned up, and it's definitely not helpful that the Knights lost in the first round, but let's get into it. Let's look one last time at the Knights this season.
Second round of the Big 12 tournament is a pivotal matchup between UCF and Cincinnati. Early on, Jeremy Frumena finds a cutting Riley Kugel, who elevates off the LED4 and slams it home. Tie game, it's Mufasa Chime catching and putting home an and one bucket to give Cincy a 1-point lead at the half. Second half, Cincinnati starting to grow a lead. It's Jalen Celestine drilling a big-time three. UCF won't go away, though, as Riley Kugel drives into the lane and finishes plus the foul. Cincy answers right back as it's Jalen Celestine again with another three ball, this one from the top of the key. Final 2 minutes, UCF down 8, and the comeback begins with Stillwell grabbing that loose ball, putting it up. Jordan Burks with a nice midair move. He cuts it to 4. Riley Kugel driving hard in the lane again. He gets the roll.
They're going to do it.
2. A full court press is now on for UCF. The Knights get a deflection off the arm of Jordan Burks. It's a steal from Kugel. He goes flying up. We're tied at 58. An 8-0 run for UCF sends it to overtime. Overtime, it's the Jamichael Stillwell show. Taking over, muscles his way in. Floats it in for the lead. Then he does it again as he banks it home for UCF. Wins it 66-65, clinching his spot in March.
Knights Wildcats for a spot in the Big 12 semifinal, and Arizona would jump out early. This Karchenkov three, putting them up 7. Knights just trying to keep it close halfway through the first, and Chris Johnson blows by the defender for the layup. Knights down 12. Wildcats would continue to dominate the first half, with this Del Orso three making it a 19-point game. 41-18 with 3 minutes left in the first half, and this is that Themis Folks or Chris Paul knocking down the three to cut it to 20.
Very similar play styles.
Knights trying to find some life towards the end of the first half, and Stillwell would come up with this loose ball, head to Chris Johnson, who slams it home and one to end the period. Knights trying to claw back in this one, and Burks takes it to the rim, but is blocked, and the Wildcats are one of the best teams on the break. This time, Braden Burries with a nice move for 2. Themis Folks gets to the free throw line on this drive with no space and puts it up. Doesn't go, but he gets his own rebound and gets a midi to go. He'd finish with 14 on the night. The Knights out in transition, looking to make a push in the second half, and it's Themis Folks to Johnson, who drives in and hits a floater. UCF only down 12 with 12 to play. Folks back on the break to Burks for the alley-oop slam. The Knights tried to get back, their best to get back in this one. And transition points would be how they do it to stay afloat, and it's Burks to Folks for 3. But Braden Burries with the interception goes the length of the court, slamming it home and putting an exclamation point on an 81-59 Wildcats win.
Let's dance. UCF's in the tournament for the first time since 2019, and they take on UCLA after a slow start from the Bruins. They begin to heat up as Sky Clark hits the jumper here, sparking a big UCLA run. UCF staying in the game as Burks sends a defender flying by, and he hits the three ball from the corner. It's money. UCF ended the first half with back-to-back threes from Cambridge and Pacheco and trailed 35-27 at the break. To the second half now, it's Eric Daly, and he hits a three ball, putting the lead back to double digits for UCLA. He had 20 in this ballgame. UCF once again making it interesting as Burks nails another three. UCF got it to within one possession before another UCLA run. Jordan Burks and Riley Kugel were the best players for the Knights in this one. He pulls up and hits a three himself, but UCLA kept answering every time UCF breathed a little bit of life. Jordan Burks, who scored 22 in this game, cuts it down to 7 with 3 to play with a bucket. But here comes UCLA again on the other end. It's an and one bucket, and they're back up 10 with just 2 to play. UCF would rally back in the final few minutes and get it to one possession game again. But as this game went, unfortunately, UCLA would be able to close things out as they make their free throws at the end of the game, and time runs out on the 2025-2026 UCF Knights basketball season.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we see the last free throws for UCLA, something that the Knights couldn't do all game long, and it felt like we were that close but that far away at the same time. Every Knights run they had, UCLA would just answer right back.
It was unfortunate because multiple times in that game, they got it to within a possession or 2 possessions, and it felt like, all right, momentum is changing. Here we go. This is the time, and then boom, 10-0 run for UCLA, and they're back up 11. It was very unfortunate.
Yeah, well, I want to pitch it back to you again. What went wrong for the Knights in the NCAA tournament?
Some missed opportunities. You look, free throws was obviously the biggest. 5 of 16 from the free throw line, just 31%. That is unheard of. And the Knights all year weren't a bad free throw shooting team.
Nope.
But obviously, pressure free throws in March, that was a big one. 12 missed layups in this game, the announcers said was a problem, and 16 or 17 total turnovers. Themis Folks didn't have his best game. He had multiple turnovers. Just a lot of things. They were shooting themselves in the foot, basically.
If you want to win in March, you have to play some of your best basketball of the season, and it looked like UCF played some of their worst basketball of the season. You mentioned the turnovers. They had 16 as a team for the game, 11 in the first half, which really hurt them as they only went down into halftime, only down 8 points. But it could have been maybe even a lead had they been able to not turn the ball over so much. And then, as we mentioned before, making their free throws was just something throughout the whole game that they couldn't do. John Bull, we know about his kind of awkward shooting form, and it really hurt the Knights in this one. He went 0 for 5 from the free throw line. And as a team, Joe mentioned earlier, 31% from the free throw line. The Knights, as a team, shot 74% from the line this season. So just very uncharacteristic, and it sucks for the season to end that way.
And then we lose by 4 points. We end up losing by 4 points. John Bull scores 2 on ourselves. He misses 5 free throws. Take 2, add 5 to UCF. Maybe we win the game. It's unfortunate. There's a lot of what-ifs there, but unlucky, I think. Unlucky.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think you can chalk that up to more shooting yourselves in the foot than UCLA even playing a better game, because it felt like UCLA was trying to hand the Knights the game at some points, especially with them not being able to convert on some of their turnover opportunities, and just in general, that game felt like it could have been UCF for the taking, but unfortunate. So, next question, do we stick with Coach Dawkins throughout the course of however long the tenure is?
Yeah, I think 13, 14 new players this year, a completely new roster, and this team was predicted to finish in the bottom of the Big 12, and we got to the NCAA tournament. We're not a known basketball program here at UCF, and to get to March Madness is the end goal, and it's the first time we've really competed in the Big 12, like competitively. So I think it's good to keep Coach Dawkins, see if he can maybe build off this season going forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this team from the perspective of a 17-4 team coming off a number 11 Texas Tech win, everyone's chanting for this team to be ranked. You have a little bit of you have a little bit of a different perspective from when you look at the season as 13 new players all coming together under Coach Dawkins and just looking to have a successful season. I think that this season can definitely be categorized as a success for the Knights, and I don't think that if you're a real Knights fan, you can categorize it as anything but, because you win 21 games this season. You get to the quarterfinal of the Big 12 tournament. You are competitive in the Big 12 as a whole. I think that it was a successful season. I think we keep on rolling with Coach Dawkins. But next, how do we feel about the season as a whole?
Yeah, like I said, I think it was a success. We were predicted to finish very bottom of the Big 12. Mm-hmm. We ended up making the tournament. It doesn't hurt to make the tournament, and that's the end goal, and I think it was successful.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think this is kind of harping on what we said with Coach Dawkins. Just as a whole, this team wasn't supposed to be anywhere close to making it to March Madness, especially with all the new players you mentioned, and I think that this team had a good season.
And then last question, favorite moment of the year to end the UCF basketball off?
I think just rolling into after the BYU win, it was such a high being able to just take that game on the road, especially after being like plus 1,000 underdogs. Yep. Nobody expected us to do that. Rolling into that game, being up 20, even 30 at points during that game, it was such a high for the Knights, and it really felt like that was the clinching moment for March Madness. The Cincinnati win definitely helped as well, but rolling into BYU when they were still ranked, it was such a good win. And I think the first time UCF had ever beaten BYU in men's basketball, so just an incredible moment. What's yours?
Yeah, I think mine is going to be that first Kansas game, the opener in Big 12 play. Kansas came in with the number 17 ranking next to their name, and UCF pretty much controlled that entire game. They led from start to finish, and I think that win kind of proved that this UCF team was good this year, that they were going to have a good year. It's going to be a fun year to watch. They stormed the court, so it got the students into it. I think that was my favorite moment of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And what a season for the Knights. It unfortunately had to end in a round of 64 loss to the Bruins in March Madness, but that's all we have talking about the Knights this season. We're going to be talking more March Madness right after this.
It's that time of year again, and another NASCAR Cup Series season means another edition of the Daytona 500. Once again, fans flooded the Daytona International Speedway last weekend to cheer on their favorite drivers. And their not-so-favorite drivers, too. And as always, our HGF Bets crew was fired up to make their picks.
Gentlemen, start your engines!
But let's take a look at how those predictions played out. Augie took a look at the reigning Daytona 500 champ and thought, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I'd choose another outright race winner in the number 24 car, William Byron.
Coming off of 2 straight wins in the 500, Byron had a shot at being the first driver ever to make it 3 in a row.
Look, he's going to be the first person to make history.
But unfortunately for Augie, the 24 car had a quiet race, crossing the finish line in 12th place with 0 laps led. Scott, on the other hand, had his sights set on none other than
Ross Chastain.
hoping he would finish top 3. The Melon Man raced a promising drive, trading the number 1 spot throughout the 500 miles and leading a total of 12 laps. But to Scott's disappointment, he finished far from the top 3 as the 20th driver to take the checkered flag, meaning that the desk was now 0 for 2. But luckily, Ben decided to put his money on an absolute veteran.
For my pick, like I said, Battle of the Bush, I got Kyle Busch to finish top 3.
Another driver hungry for his first Daytona 500 win, Kyle Busch rocketed his car to pole position in qualifying, starting the big race in first. The number 8 car was clearly on a mission, racing at the front of the pack and leading 19 laps on the night. But even after finishing the second stage in 4th, Busch could only manage a 15th place finish in the end. So who should the boys have placed their bets on? How about the man who led only 1 lap the entire race? That's right, Tyler Reddick's number 45 car started the final lap in 4th place and steered past the chaos to cross the finish line in first. Reddick's heroic last lap pass was followed up with some well-deserved burnouts as the 23XI racing team celebrated their first win in the Great American Race. Take a bow, Tyler Reddick. You are now a Daytona 500 champion.
Welcome back to the desk. The madness is here. We talked about UCF's March Madness. Let's talk about the rest of the weekend. The first 4, the first round and the second round all concluded this week. Let's start off with some of the upsets that we saw in that first round. The Cinderella is starting to fade away a little bit. It's been a little chalk the last couple of years, but we did have a few, starting with 11 VCU over 6 North Carolina, 12 High Point over number 5 Wisconsin, and number 11 Texas over number 6 BYU. Any of those specifically you want to mention or talk about?
Yeah, I think you have to roll with the VCU Rams. Being down 19 in the second half and being able to come all the way back, force an overtime, and then just be able to kind of not dominate the overtime period, but still being able to get the win over North Carolina, and North Carolina really just fumbling away that game. But that's what March is about, right? Being able to see a double-digit seed be able to take it to an ACC team and come back all the way down from 19 points. It was just an electric game from start to finish, even though there was a little bit of a lull when North Carolina went on the run, and then VCU just answers right back.
I think we kind of expected this one. This was a popular upset pick with Wilson being out for North Carolina. But let's welcome in today's guest to also talk some March Madness this week. Mason Best, welcome back to Nighttime.
It's a pleasure to be back for the best month of sports there is. March Madness, and the madness has unfolded. The VCU win over North Carolina was absolutely electric. I could tell you that when they were down 19, I thought there was no way they were coming back into that game. And they have everybody to thank on that team, but specifically Terrence Hill Jr., who put up 34 points and played 40 minutes in that game. It's an absolutely impressive performance.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that some of the other upsets were cool as well. I think the High Point one kind of kicking off the March Madness, the second game of the round of 64. I thought that was a cool win, especially because of the fact that you have the last bucket of the game was somebody hitting their first two-point field goal.
To go.
Yeah, and winning that game for High Point. But I think that VCU over North Carolina kind of embodies what March Madness is. And we mentioned Texas over BYU. I think that's a good upset, but especially because it's a double-digit seed in Texas and a team that was in the first 4. But I really don't even consider Texas, especially depending on how far they get, a real Cinderella just because they are Texas and they are such a big program.
Only 4 double-digit seeds into the round of 32 this year. That's the lowest total since 2007.
Chalky.
A lot of people upset with the chalk. But let's go to some close calls, some almost upsets, starting with Duke, a close one over number 16 Siena, 71-65 that one ended. Vanderbilt over number 12 McNeese, they only ended up winning by 10. Wright State was leading Virginia for most of that game, but Virginia overcame it, winning 182-73. Any of those catch your eye?
I think the first one, you have to start with Duke almost losing to Siena. If Siena had anybody that they could sub in the second half, maybe if their legs weren't so tired, that's a real chance at a 16-1 upset, especially Duke being a team that was the number one, one of the number 1 seeds and the number 1 overall seed. So it was just a crazy game. Nobody was expecting it. Everybody expected Duke to win by 30-plus points, and Siena came out in the first half, took it to them, kind of sputtered in the second half and wasn't able to hold on to it. But still a really good game. And the fact that their starting 5 played 39 minutes and 20 seconds, except everyone played 40 minutes except for one guy. It was actually insane, and it was just a crazy game.
Yeah, no substitutes, and they were up 11 or double digits at the half. Mason, what did you see in that Duke-Siena game?
A super impressive game. Gavin Doty played almost all the game. I think he sat out for like 5 seconds. He had 21 points. He was the Siena offense and was the reason they were in the game. And like you guys said, if they weren't so tired going down the stretch there, I think they really have a shot at that game. And I think that's kind of what has embodied some of these lower seeds in March, is it's really hard to hang with the big dogs in the final 2 minutes because Duke and all these other 1 seeds are built for that moment, whereas Siena was starting to fade.
Yeah, we've kind of seen that where the lower seeds have kind of been in it, and then at the very end of the game, that's why depth is so important in March. Let's go to the best game of the first round, Kentucky over Santa Clara. The buzzer beater to tie the game from half court for Kentucky, and then they clinch it in overtime.
Yeah, I mean, what a shot for from Otega Owe. You see Santa Clara being able to stay with Kentucky throughout the course of the game. A blue blood school versus a Santa Clara school that's from the Western Coast Conference. And it was a close game throughout, and then you just get towards the end, and you're like, wow, could Santa Clara really pull this upset? Although it's not the biggest upset, it's a 7-10. 7-10.
But a blue blood in Kentucky, for sure.
Exactly. And Otega Owe caps a 35-point night by sending the Wildcats to overtime and kind of making their own little March Madness moment, which was really crazy. Just an overall really great game, and 2 schools that you wouldn't expect to be so close, but Santa Clara really put up a fight in this one. And I actually had them in my bracket, so I was really sad to see them go.
Yeah, this was definitely the best game of round 1. Mason, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Dare I say the best game of the tournament so far? It couldn't, and I think it could hold there. The game as a whole was absolutely electric. Santa Clara goes up with 3 seconds left. Kentucky comes right back. Otega Owe from the left side of the court puts up a half-court heave, drains it. Absolutely electric. Looks like he was taking notes from his brother with that contested shot there.
Yeah, and Otega Owe was huge for the Wildcats the whole game. He led them in points, rebounds, and assists, and then comes up with a huge shot, forces overtime, and then eventually helps them win in overtime. What a game for the Wildcats, and unfortunately for Santa Clara, they're going home in the first round.
Yeah, and then some really good team performances overall in round 1. I think St. Louis over Georgia, 102-77. That was 42 made field goals for St. Louis in that one. And Florida over Prairie View, I know it's a 1-16 game, but 114-55, largest margin of victory, second largest margin of victory in a tournament.
Yeah, I mean, their coach being interviewed and then saying, we're going to need some help from the Lord.
Yeah,
that was
sure.
That was definitely a moment in March, and it looked just like it. I mean, almost losing by 60 points, no matter what the seeding is a little bit crazy. They're just playing completely different brands of basketball. And I think the St. Louis game was also crazy because it's a 9-8 seed, so it's not 9-8 matchup, so it's not a crazy upset. But the fact that they were to really take it to an SEC team like that and just prove that they belonged in March was crazy. It was unfortunate that they had to lose in the round of 32.
And that leads us into round 2. As we just talked about Florida, we'll start with probably the biggest upset of this tournament so far. A number 1 seed is out. Number 9 Iowa takes down Florida 73-72, and also Texas, the only double-digit seed into the Sweet 16, knocked off number 3 Gonzaga.
Yeah, I mean, I want to start with the Iowa-Florida game. What a game that was. And then I don't really understand the concept of full-court pressing when you're up 2 going into the last possession of the game. Leaving somebody wide open from the corner, not the exact strategy that they were probably looking for there. And Iowa being able to convert off that chance and being able to win it for them. And it just also not being able to get a shot up with 4 seconds left on the clock, that's extremely unfortunate. There's been a lot of hate throughout the season for Xavier Lee. Don't think it quiets down because of that. He definitely had a shot, at least to be able to put up a layup to maybe win them that game, and didn't take it. Unfortunate, but Florida goes down and is not able to defend their national championship.
Very shocking. 3.7 seconds left. Alvarado Figueroa, Florida, gets no shot off attempt. Mason, was that the best upset of this tournament so far?
Definitely. That game confused me as a whole. Another one of those games, very much like the Kentucky and Santa Clara game, where I'm not really sure what the game plan going into the end of the game there was. Florida had more than enough time to get a shot up. I don't understand why they rushed into the paint the way they did. I don't understand the defensive game plan and full court pressing there that left an Iowa guy wide open on the wing. It was a very, very confusing game, but a huge win for Iowa and devastating for the Gators.
Yeah, and I think maybe if we're going to review the Texas-Gonzaga game just a little bit. Texas, again, we mentioned, I don't really consider them a Cinderella team, but they're only a double-digit seed to make it to the Sweet 16. And Boca Titus, what a March Madness he's having. I mean, not great from the free throw line, but he is having a crazy, he's having crazy double-digit games from points and then also from rebounding. So, I mean, he's having a great March Madness, and Texas, again, the only double-digit seed in Sweet 16.
We had some great games last night, both of these. Nebraska over number 5 Vandy. The half-court shot that almost goes for Vanderbilt goes in and out. And then St. John's with a buzzer-beater win over Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, I want to start with Nebraska-Vandy. That was a crazy game, back and forth throughout the end of that game. It felt like they were trading threes back and forth, and then Nebraska takes it in, is able to get the lead with a couple of seconds left in that game, and the last shot of the game was actually insane. The Nebraska head coach commenting on it, he can't believe that it didn't go in, just a little bit too much on it, and Nebraska deserves it. This is their second ever win in the tournament, both of them coming in the round of this year's tournament, round of 64 and then round of 32. But just actually insane for the Cornhuskers. They had so much support in the crowd.
Yeah.
It felt like it was like maybe 80-20 for both of their games. And good stuff from both of these teams. Two teams that are not traditional basketball schools putting up a great game and one of the best games in the whole tournament. Mason, how do you feel about the game?
The game as a whole was electric. Tyler Tanner's had an amazing March so far, and that's just heartbreaking for him. That's the second time this year he's had a shot that looks like it's going in, it's halfway into the net, and it pops right back out. That is absolutely heartbreaking. And if you're the Commodores, I don't know how you even bounce back from some of that, because that's a game that was really in your hands there and they really had a shot at.
For Nebraska, their first time in the Sweet 16, their first time winning tournament games, so luckily for them, that one didn't go. We'll talk about the best team performance in round 2. Alabama all over Texas Tech, 90-65.
Yeah, it was never close in this game, and again, this is one of the wins for UCF that we kind of cherished, and Texas Tech being blown out by 25 points against Alabama. It really does show sometimes there's levels to it, and Texas Tech just was hammered by Alabama, the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, it wasn't close from any point in that game, but now the Sweet 16 is set, and we will talk about that next here on Nighttime.
Let me give you a quick rundown of what the Hitting the Field Network has planned for you. My name is Edgar Rodriguez, and I'm the host of Hitting the Field Season 22, live streaming every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. There, you'll find me and our expert guests talking about everything in the wide world of sports. On Tuesday, get ready because it's Season 10 of Nighttime. Hosted by Andrew Greig and Joe Geiger, Nighttime keeps you up to date on everything happening in the world of college sports and UCF athletics. Moving on to Wednesday, we have Season 8 of The Combine, hosted by our very own Kathleen Moore. This podcast takes a deep and technical dive into everything NFL, and you won't want to miss that. On Thursday, we go live with Bets, where our Bets boys, Ben Huber, Augie Aronson, and Scott Harris, will give their expert opinion that might just make you some money. On Friday, Season 4 of Girls Got Game takes over with only the hottest topics in women's sports, hosted by none other than Katie Sue Christensen and Mia Flores. And to round out the week, Season 3 of HTFC comes on Saturday, hosted by Octavius Lawrence and Santiago Molina. Soccer never stops, and HTFC will be your stop for everything in the world of football. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where you can find non-stop additional content, as well as stay updated on all HTFN news. Lastly, leave a like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the Hitting the Field Network on YouTube. That's all I got. I'm Edgar Rodriguez signing off. Enjoy the rest of your show.
The Sweet 16 is set after a great first weekend of the 2026 NCAA tournament. Sweet 16's here. What's a good Sweet 16 matchup to look out for?
Yeah, I think the Arizona Wildcats and the Arkansas Razorbacks is going to be one of the best matchups. Two high-scoring offenses, two teams that maybe don't play the best defense, but a lot of really good freshmen in this one. You have Koa Pete, you have Braden Burries, and you have Darius Acuff, who is maybe a top 4 pick in next year's NBA draft. His stock is rising rapidly after Arkansas won the SEC championship. I can't wait for this game. And Arkansas's looked good in the tournament. They've had a close game in the round of 32, but still, I can't wait to see what Darius Acuff is going to do in this next round, and I just can't wait to see that matchup. So I want to bring in our guest, Matthew Pulbrook, to also give one of his matchups for this weekend.
I'd like to introduce Austin Suarez too, but
thank you so much, Matthew.
That's all right. That's all right. I just had to mention you. I think this matchup, Iowa State and Tennessee, I think that is the most intriguing matchup for me in the Sweet 16. Iowa State, I picked to make the Final Four out of the Midwest region, and honestly, kind of, for lack of a better phrase, a dark horse to win the entire thing. At thing with Tennessee, they rank 14th in KenPom, but they're only a 6th seed. And then for Virginia, which they beat Tennessee in the round of 32, they ranked 19th in KenPom. So that is something you have to keep in mind. And I think a lot of the guys for Tennessee are playing out of their minds. Nate Ament, Bishop Boswell, especially Jacoby Gillespie in the 2 games in Philadelphia in the round of 32 and the round of 64 against Miami of Ohio and Virginia. He scored a total of 50 points in those 2 games. I think the Volunteers are something to worry about for Iowa State. Obviously, with Iowa State in terms of the injury to Joshua Jefferson, who's arguably your best player. That's something that is going to help or actually affect the result against Tennessee. So that's why this is an intriguing matchup. But yeah, that injury brings into effect, and I think Tennessee is going to have a great opportunity to beat Iowa State, and it's going to be a very close game, guys.
Yeah, that's a big one in the Midwest region. Austin, I knew you were sitting over there. What's a Sweet 16 matchup you're looking forward to?
Sorry about that, Austin.
Oh, you guys are great. You guys are wonderful. I love you guys. Well, the Sweet 16 matchup I am looking forward to the most is number 11 Texas taking on number 2 Purdue. I do have Purdue winning this, but you know, Texas seems to be clicking at the right time. They beat NC State in the first 4. They beat number 6 BYU, and they even upset number 3 Gonzaga. This is just a classic Cinderella versus powerhouse game. Purdue is shooting nearly 60% from the 3, 70 points per game allowed with a solid defense. They're going into their 3rd straight Sweet 16. However, Texas plays a very physical defense, which means they can foul a lot, but they are a better second half team once adjustments are made. They win games with clutch moments, such as, the game winner against NC State, the late 3 against Gonzaga. The name of the game for Texas, though, will be to exploit the Boilermakers' defense, scoring 83 points per game to their 70 points per game allowed. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing points, Austin.
Thank you. And you don't go into this game with a second half adjustment plan. You need to go into this first half like it is the second half of play.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great game. I completely agree with you. And I want to just formally apologize for not seeing you there for a second.
You're good.
I think you made some amazing points.
Yeah,
Joe, let's transition to you. What do you think is going to be a good matchup?
I got Houston and Illinois. This one's in the South region, a classic good offense versus good defense. We'll see which one comes up. Big 12, Big 10. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, moving on, though, towards the end of the weekend, who's going to make the Final Four? We'll start with you again, Joe.
Well, okay. Who's going to make the Final Four? I actually have who's going to win the South region, Andrew Greig. And it's not going to be the 1-seeded Florida Gators because they're out. I think it's going to be the 4-seeded Nebraska Cornhuskers. They have never won an NCAA tournament game coming into this tournament. They've won 2 now, and I think they began that path. They survived that Vandy game. It was a thriller. They have some luck on their side. That ball went in and out. They will play Iowa in the Sweet 16. It's a very familiar Big Ten opponent with them. They've split the regular season series with them, and then they would have to play either Houston or Illinois, that game I just talked about. So I like Nebraska. I think it's time, They've never won a tournament game, and now, boom, to the Final Four they go.
Would you consider Nebraska a Cinderella team just based off their history in basketball, never winning an NCAA tournament victory throughout all of their history, and then being able to get 2 in the first weekend and possibly being able to advance to the Final Four? Was that kind of maybe one of the stories that we're going to be talking about going into the Final Four?
I wouldn't call it a Cinderella, but it's definitely an awesome, amazing story.
Yeah.
For sure in college basketball because they've never won, and now they have a legitimate chance to get to the Final Four.
Yeah, well, I want to pitch it back to our guests. We'll start with you, Austin Suarez. Who is your pick to make the Final Four?
All right. I want everyone to act surprised, all right? Arizona.
Whoa! Incredible.
85 points per game, balanced attack. There's just this gap between Arizona and other teams in terms of offensive firepower. They can win not only fast-paced shootouts, but half-court, grinded out kind of games. Their path to winning the West is very favorable. They're taking on Arkansas to start things off. There's that gap in offensive firepower that I was telling you about. However, the winner of Texas versus Purdue is going to produce some very interesting results because if Texas wins, the same logic applies. There's the gap in offensive firepower, but Purdue would be a much tougher matchup and would come down to a battle in efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. You made some great points, Austin. I want to take it off and do my Final Four team. Yeah. We're going to the East region, and I'm sticking with some chalk in this region. I'm going to go with the number 1 overall seed in Duke. I think that they had their rust buster in Siena, and then they were able to get a win in their second round game against TCU. The first half of that game, it felt like they were still playing a little bit of that Siena game. They let TCU stay close in that game, but once they started playing their actual game, once they started playing Duke basketball this season, they were able to take it to TCU, winning by 20 points. I just think that they're one of the best teams that I've seen in recent memory. They have a lot of good players on that team, especially Cam Boozer, who's probably going to be the Naismith Player of the Year this season. I think that good NBA players translate to college basketball, obviously. And I think that the Duke Blue Devils are going to be able to come out of this region first being St. John's and then beating whoever comes out of the Michigan State-UConn game.
Yeah, obviously we were a little worried by the Siena game and then the front half of that TCU game, but they really got their act together. And TCU is a really good team coming into the game. They play good defense, and Duke kind of put it to them in that second half. But let's go to Matty P. Who takes the Midwest region?
Midwest region, Iowa State. I'm sticking with them. And I know you saw this, Joe. I was changing the teleprompter from Michigan to Iowa State. I was battling through it this morning going, who do I pick for the Midwest region? And I'll stick to my original pick that I had pre-tournament. Obviously, as I mentioned, the Joshua Jefferson injury. We'll see his status. But Iowa State, when they're hot, they get hot. And they're honestly, arguably, one of the teams to beat in the Midwest region. I think they're very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Iowa State's one of the best teams in the Big 12, right? We saw them in person, not in person, but we saw them against the Knights this season.
Yeah.
And it didn't look very pretty from our perspective. But they are one of the best teams. I just can't really go against Michigan. I like the pick. If there's going to be anybody that's not Michigan, I think it's going to be Iowa State.
The Jefferson injury is definitely a key thing to note. That'll be tough. They got through Kentucky in blowout fashion, but it's going to get tough from here on out. And there's some good teams left in this tournament. I can't wait to see who survives out of each region. And we'll be talking Final Four and Elite Eight next week. So we'll see you next time on Nighttime.